Hi guys, welcome back to MathX, and today's lesson will be on circles.
In this lesson we have four main vocabulary words. The first ones will be diameter and radius, the second one will be circumference, the third one will be pi, and the fourth one will be area of a circle. The diameter is the complete width of a circle. So what this means is that the diameter is the line that goes from one side of the circle all the way to the other, crossing through the center point. In the picture shown, there's an example of the diameter. The diameter runs from one point of the circle all the way to the other, running through that center point. With a measuring tape, we found that the diameter of this circle is 10.8 centimeters, rounded to the nearest tenth. Now that we know what the diameter is, we can figure out the radius. The radius is the measure from the center point to any part of the circle, or half of the diameter. The diameter runs all the way from one point to the other, crossing the center point. The radius is simply from one edge of the circle to the center point, which is exactly half of the diameter. With this information, we can conclude that the radius is the diameter divided by 2, or the diameter is the radius times 2. R stands for radius and D stands for diameter. These two formulas can be really helpful when you need to make other calculations, but you're only given one dimension. The next term we'll be learning is pi. Pi is actually a math constant. A constant is a number that never ends. The real number that represents pi starts with 3.14, but never ends. Pi is also the relationship between the diameter and the circumference of a circle. This may not make sense at first, as we haven't learned what circumference is, but once we do, this will make more sense. Just for now, know that the circumference, diameter, and pi all have some kind of relationship. Now we know that circumference is the perimeter of a circle. But how do we find the perimeter of a circle? And you might be wondering, what is the relationship between pi, diameter, and circumference? Here's where that relationship plays into a role. The formula to find circumference is actually pi times diameter. On your calculator, you'll see a little button that looks like this symbol right here, which represents pi, and its constant, which is 3.14, and so on. Then, to find the total circumference, you click the pi button and click multiply, and multiply it with the diameter of your circle. To find your diameter, you locate the center point of your circle and you measure from one point of the circle all the way to the other while crossing through that center point. Then, to find the total circumference, you click the pi button and click multiply, and multiply it with the diameter of your circle. To find your diameter, you locate the center point of your circle and you measure from one point of the circle all the way to the other while crossing through that center point. In the example at the bottom, we found the circumference of the circle drawn in the circumference definition. The diameter of that circle was 10.8 centimeters. We substituted in 10.8 for the D, which is diameter, and after multiplying that by pi, we found that the circumference of the circle is 33.93 centimeters, rounded to the nearest hundredth. Here we have our first practice question. Pause the video if you'd like to try it out yourself. In the question, it says that the radius of the circle is 5 centimeters. To find the circumference, we need the diameter. Now, to find the diameter from the radius, we multiply the radius by 2, as we mentioned earlier. Now that we know that the radius is 5 centimeters, we multiply that by 2 to find the diameter, which is 10 centimeters. After putting that 10 centimeters into our circumference formula, we find that the circumference is equal to pi times 10 centimeters. After putting that in our calculator, we find the answer is 31.42 centimeters. So, the circumference of a circle with a radius of 5 centimeters is 31.42 centimeters. Here's our second practice question. Again, if you want to try out the question yourself, pause the video now and check your answer after. In this second question, we can use the strategy working backwards. Since we started with our circumference, we need to work backwards and divide. Usually, we multiply the diameter by pi to find the circumference. Now we are starting at the circumference and working back. So, we start with the circumference, which is 25.13 centimeters, and divide that by pi. After dividing it by pi, we find a really long number, which starts with 7.99 and so on. In the question, it says rounded to the nearest whole. 7.99 rounded to the nearest whole is 8 centimeters. So the diameter of this circle is 8 centimeters. So our next definition is how to find the area of a circle. Our formula is area equals pi, 3.14, and so on, multiplied by the radius of the circle squared. The radius of the circle is once again half of the diameter, and the squared basically means r times r, radius times radius. In the example, it shows that the radius is 6 centimeters, and after substituting that in our formula, we find that area equals pi times 6 squared. After squaring 6, we get that 6 squared is 36 centimeters. And after multiplying 36 centimeters with pi, we find that the area of the circle is 113.1 centimeters squared. Now you must be wondering, why does this formula work? Well, if you look at this circle right here, we have split it up into 8 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And right here is the labeled radius. If we split this circle up, we can see that it can form into a sort of parallelogram. In this parallelogram, we have the radius labeled right here. If we think about it, we can see that on the circle, the circumference is around the outside. Now, once we split these triangles up, we can see that there's half circumference on each side of the parallelogram, because each side of the triangle is 1/8 of the circumference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That means that one side is equal to 1/2 of the circumference. And 1/2 of the circumference would be pi times radius. If the full circumference of a circle is pi times diameter, it would only make sense that half is pi times radius, since radius is half of the diameter. Therefore, pi times radius would give us the length of the base, and then after that, to find the area of a normal parallelogram, what we do is we multiply it by the height. In this case, the height is the radius of the circle. So that the formula becomes pi times radius. And to shorten the radius times radius, we do pi times r squared. This might be a little difficult to understand at first, but with some practice, this will make more sense. Here are some practice questions. If you'd like to try them out yourself, pause the video now and check your answers after. To solve the first question, we start by finding the radius with the diameter given. The diameter given is 3.1 centimeters. To find the radius with this, we divide by 2. After dividing by 2, we find that the radius is 1.55 centimeters. Then, we put that into our area formula. Area equals pi times 1.55 squared. 1.55 squared is 2.4025 centimeters. Multiply that by pi, and the answer is 7.5 centimeters squared, rounded to the nearest tenth. In this question, we start with the area, and we have to work our way down and work our way back up to find the circumference. Now, to find the radius from our area, we work backwards. We have the area, and what we do in a normal formula is we square root the radius and then multiply it by pi. So now, we go from the top and we work down. We start with the 28.27, which is the area of our circle, and we work backwards. So, we divide the 28.27 by pi, which gives us 9 centimeters. 9 centimeters square rooted is 3 centimeters, which is the radius. In a normal formula, we usually square the radius, so in this case, we square rooted it to go backwards. With this, we found our radius is 3 centimeters. 3 centimeters multiplied by 2 gives us a diameter of 6 centimeters. Now, with this diameter, we can find our circumference. Circumference equals pi times diameter, which is pi times 6 centimeters. Pi times 6 centimeters is 18.85 centimeters. So our circumference is 18.85 centimeters. Here are some word problems for extra practice. This is just to see how circles and their formulas apply to the real world. If you'd like to, once again, pause the video right now and try them out yourself. Check your answers once we're done. In the first question, it says that Bob and his friend are walking around the pond at the park. They walked around the whole pond, and the pond is 2 miles across. What distance did they walk? Now, it says that the pond is 2 miles across. Since it says across, that means that it's the diameter, since it's going from one side all the way to the other. So, we know that the diameter is 2 miles. Now, we find the circumference with the diameter. Pi times diameter, which is pi times 2, and that gives us 6.28 miles. So, Bob and his friend walked around 6.28 miles. In the second question, it says that a worker at a donut shop needs to glaze donuts. What is the area of the space that needs to be glazed in this diagram right here? So we can see that the inner portion of the donut, where the hole is, has a diameter of 5 centimeters, and the donut itself has a diameter of 10 centimeters. So we have a diameter of 10 centimeters on the total, which means that we have a radius of 5 after we divide by 2, and the inner portion has a diameter of 5 centimeters and a radius of 2.5 centimeters. So we start by finding the area of the total donut, including the middle hole. So we do area equals pi r squared, which is pi times 5 squared, because the radius of the total is 5 centimeters. So we get pi times 25 centimeters, which is 78.54 centimeters squared. Now, we need to find the area of the middle portion, because that part we need to subtract from the total because there's no donut there. So, we do the same thing, and we find the area of it. Area equals pi r squared, which is pi times 2.5 squared, because the radius is 2.5 centimeters, half of 5 centimeters, and we find that it's pi times 6.25 centimeters, which gives us 19.63 centimeters squared. So now we have to subtract it. We have the total area of the whole donut if there were to be a middle, and then we subtract the middle from it because there's no donut area in the middle. So after subtracting, we get 58.91 centimeters squared, which is the area of the donut and the area that needs to be glazed.
Thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe if you liked the video, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments down below.